you can be incredibly successful at a lot of things and still feel like a failure if you're not working or you're not operating for the God-given intended purpose of why you were created.
Hey everybody, welcome to Slow Smoke Business. I'm Jarrod Morgan, and today we are joined by Rylee Meek. Rylee is from the King's Council. He's the heart and the brains behind that movement. Welcome to the show, Rylee.
Hey, Jarrod, happy to be here, man. I don't know about the brains part you said there, but I got a lot of heart about that.
He'll take the heart, right? So, Rylee, I'm so excited to be talking to you, Rylee. Rylee is, we'll say the heart behind the King's Council, and talks a lot about the intersection of the business world and faith and the Bible, and something that's near and dear to my heart, something that, I'll be frank, has always been a little bit of a struggle to share in a business setting. And so I'm learning, which is a lot of this podcast is about me learning stuff. It's also about me learning how to get better at barbecuing, which is my cue to get over there and get something on the grill. How's that sound, Rylee?
Sounds good, man. I'm looking to get better at barbecuing here. So,
well, let's learn together. So this could not be. I'm going to pop the grill open today. We actually did our Thanksgiving a little early this year as a family. So this is a grill that has been put through the ringer over the last little bit. We've been smoking turkeys and everything else, but we're going to do something really easy today. Chicken, whole chicken on the smoker, dusted with some nice flavoring, and we're going to just let this bad boy get delicious. Can you see that, Rylee?
it looks like it will be tasty. I'm hoping.
Will be tasty.
So.
Yeah, I like my chicken medium rare.
Yeah, right. I've never seen put a whole chicken on the grill before. So.
Oh, really? No. Yeah, I mean, you've seen you go in the grocery store and you see the the rotisserie chicken.
Rotisserie,
right? Yeah. Same concept. We're just not going to turn it, which would be awesome if we could turn it, but it's okay. It'll smoke up the same way. You want to make sure we have some temperature probes that go with this pellet grill here. Hashtag not a sponsor. That's why I'm not saying their name. Not yet. And we are, we'll just keep an eye. You want to just keep a really close eye on the temperature of these things, because you're cooking a really big piece of meat, or really, really big piece of animal, I guess. Right. And, when you do that, the outsides can get really done, but the insides cannot be. So you want to you really want to look at how that's being done. So I'm going to take one of these salmonella gloves off and dust it one more time, and then we're going to throw some probes in it. Now, some people will bind them up, and you see that a lot with turkey too. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to let it kind of spread out. I think that gets the wings and stuff a little crispier, which I like. So we're going to go probe right into the breast there. And then I'm going to go probably one into the other. We'll go kind of maybe towards the dark meat down the middle. There we go. All right, so we got two different probes telling us temp, and this concludes this session of the cooking class. So
I love it. And then you just have the thermometer that sits on the outside. I feel like I've overcomplicated grilling my whole life, man. This is phenomenal.
Okay, look, this is an ongoing war on this show. As many barbecue purists will tell me, they will say this is not barbecuing. I wholeheartedly disagree. This is a pellet grill. It uses the latest technology to make this easier. But the idea with the pellet grill is, you've got the compressed little wood pellets and you're getting smoke and everything else. Look, man, I have the street cred. I've gone to the countryman's house with the trailer, and you're buying wood chunks off of him and you're putting it in. I've done all that, right? This is so much faster. I'm a busy guy. I don't have a ton of time to be like, today we're going to do a 400-hour cook of it. I don't know I'm busy, right? I got kids. I got a business. The pellet grill is the way to go.
I love it. I need to get one, man. Then
there you go. You're in Minnesota, so you there is a definitive grilling season up there, I would imagine.
Oh yes, there is, man. And we are going into not grilling season. So maybe I'll put this on my Christmas list. My wife can get me something like this.
There you go. All right, let's jump. I want to jump right into the meat of the questions. And I want to hear about how King's Council came about. But I want to ask you, like, to me, what is the biggest question about this type of thing? What do you say to somebody when they say, I don't understand how business and biblical teaching and business and faith can actually coexist?
Mm. Well, I would number one determine if that person is actually a believer in Christ, right? Because if they are, then they can't not coexist, right?
Right.
If you've committed your life to Christ and you followed Him, looking to Him as Savior and Lord, which is a big thing for me. You know, I'd given my life to Christ at a young age, the age of 16, but I didn't actually look to Jesus as Lord until about 4 years ago, and it was a
Wow.
revelation. I understood because I'd gone on and made a decent amount of money, multiple businesses we've built, we've done 9 figures in revenue, and it's been
Wow.
great financially, right? The world would say, "Oh, you're successful," but man, I never felt more unfulfilled in my entire life until about 4 years ago. And that's when I realized, man, that you can be incredibly successful at a lot of things and still feel like a failure if you're not working or you're not operating for the God-given intended purpose of why you were created. And
Mm.
what I mean by that is like, I'll give you an example. I have a treadmill downstairs in my home gym. It is an incredible clothes hanger. It's incredible. It hangs my clothes so well. Man,
I would like
it's
to introduce you to my Peloton. It's getting the same job done, right? Yeah.
right, but it's it would be successfully hanging my clothes, right? But
Yeah.
it's not operating for the God-given intended purpose of why the manufacturer made it. And so I would argue that the manufacturer would be like, bro, that's not success, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I found myself, where it was like, okay, could I actually can I still crush business? This was a big thing for me. Can I still crush business and be sold out for Jesus at the same time? Because most of my upbringing was like those are two different things. Like most of the Christians in my hometown, I grew up in South Dakota. Most self-professed Christians were broken, and defeated. And it was like I didn't want
Oh
any of
man.
that in my life. And so that's why I'd had an experience, had given my life to Christ, but then it was like I'm going to do my own thing. So it's like, okay, I think I got in the door of heaven, but I wasn't taking advantage of all the opportunities that it actually gave me, as well as operating within the kingdom, and which what we coach a lot on now is the kingdom economy, and just the ability, the freedom that we have when we actually have that understanding of what it actually is. So
Explain to me what the kingdom economy is too, because I think that's really interesting.
yeah, well, I like to break it down. Even I like to break down words, just because if we understand kingdom, right? So
Right.
Jesus is king. Even you mentioned the King's Council. It's our
Yeah.
ministry in which we there's a bunch of faith based entrepreneurs we help coach in the business world, and the Jesus is king, right? So if we
Yeah.
understand that and we break down the word kingdom. Uh, Jesus being king, and then DOM, that actually comes from the word domain, right? Which is like an eminent territory, right? But if used as the suffix form, not to get too nerdy on this for you, used as a
Okay.
suffix form though, we think of other words, the DOM, like freedom or stardom or boredom, right? So it's a state or a being. So kingdom would be God's rule and reign as the state or the being in my life, right? So when we have a kingdom mindset, when we're a kingdom entrepreneur, it is God's continual rule and reign in our life, and we're seeking Him first. Now we can create what I call the kingdom economy, right? And most of us, when we think of an economy, even as like in the US, we have uh, they gauge an economy, or different nations gauge the economy based upon our GDP, right? The
Yeah.
gross domestic productivity. So it's not
Hmm.
even about how much cash is printed, right? Or even how much gold is stacked up, behind the bank's vaults. It's about the productivity that's taking place. What are we actually producing? And as kingdom entrepreneurs, our original mandate in Genesis 1:28 was to be fruitful, to multiply, to subdue this earth, have dominion. And I really believe that's a lot of people think that's about just like making babies, which is fun to do, making them, right? Maybe
Yeah,
not
not
raising
that,
them, but making them. But it's more about the kingdom culture that we are to have and to instill throughout the world, throughout the earth. But the problem was, that was Genesis chapter 1. And by Genesis 3, dude, we jack it all up. We
oh
fell,
yeah,
and now this world is a freaking nightmare. But the beautiful thing is, if you're a follower of Jesus, when he came, he died on the cross, and ultimately he rose again. And when he came back, he came preaching one thing, and that was the kingdom of heaven is here. And so the beautiful thing, like he came back to like restore original creation. So we can operate with this kingdom authority, this kingdom mindset, this kingdom culture in creating the kingdom economy, right? The productivity, that how we're producing and providing into the marketplace. So that's, to me, man, is the kingdom economy. And unfortunately, uh, I, man, I read this a few years ago. It's crazy to me, but unfortunately, most Christians, and this is, dude, why I've struggled so much to even go down this path of like, can I crush business? Can I actually make a lot of money and be a Christian? And because most of the products and things that I saw in the marketplace, like if you were a self-professed Christian, like kind of felt like, yeah, it's probably not very good. Like the quality probably sucks because they went the cheapest route. You know what I mean? Because
yeah,
if we're
totally,
honest with it, like most of us probably have that thought or that mindset, which is
yeah,
terrible, right?
yeah.
And that's where
Well, but I
it's,
mean, we've been conditioned to see that though. Like,
yeah,
no offense to the media makers out there, but like for so long, like if you saw like a Christian movie star, so and it was always like, oh, like regular movies here, like then like Hallmark holiday movies, and then like the Christian movies are way down here, where you're like, oh, the quality is horrible. Now
yeah,
they've gotten way better, like October Baby, the Irwin
yeah,
brothers, all those guys are doing incredible things now. But I totally get it. That you when you see a business historically, when you see a business and they put the Christian part too far out in front, there's an assumption that they're honest, right? And that they're probably also maybe not that good, right?
yes. Unfortunately,
Yeah, I mean,
it is.
previously. So how do we break that, right?
Yeah, well, dude, I'm glad you asked because it starts, I believe, with entrepreneurs. In coming into this understanding of what the kingdom, what does a kingdom entrepreneur actually even mean, and then how do we operate within the kingdom economy. And I think that the reason for it, it's so crazy to me, man. Even when you look across the church here in America, it's like a lot of Christians are we're broke, right? That's like
Yeah.
they're just like they view money as evil, right? Which
Yes.
is
Oh,
completely incorrect. It's a tool, right? It's what we
yeah.
do with it that's going to matter most. Now, it can certainly corrupt people, but I really believe most Christians are serving money because Scripture tells us that, hey, we can't serve both God and money, or the proper actual translation would be mammon, which is like the
Yeah.
spirit of money, the power that we
Yes.
give it. And I think most Christians are serving money in their poverty. And why I say that is I think the enemy has done a good job at like infiltrating the mindset of believers, infiltrating the church to like think this concept that it's like to be to be poor is like more righteousness. It's
Yes.
like, dude, you can't.
Yes.
And this is what unlocked me, man. Gosh, I get fired up when I even
Let's come on. I'm
think
no,
about
I'm literally I'm about to stand up. I'm so fired up.
because,
Keep going.
dude, so we've all heard this parable of the Good Samaritan. Even if you're not a believer, you probably have
Yes.
heard this. Like, okay, the Good Samaritan. And when I read this again, Luke chapter 10, as I'm reading this a few years ago, and this is just kind of where again I'm like, okay, can I be a Christian? Can I actually like do this thing but still make money, or is like that an oxymoron, right? And when I read
Right.
this thing, it was like God, and this is how I know the Bible to be the living, breathing word of God, because you can read it so many times and then revelation occurs when God needs it to occur in your life. Like he will speak to you if you're abiding in him, abiding in his word. And when I read this, it says the priest passed on the other side of the street, right? So first off, to set the scene for those that don't know this story, there's a dude who gets beat up. He's robbed from, he's beat up, and he's in bad shape, on sitting on the side of the road. The priest passes, is strolling through, and he's like, ugh, yeah, I don't have time to deal with that. Right. And he literally passes on the other side of the street. A Levite, another very religious person. It's like, I don't have time for that, because there's like a cleansing time that they actually had to do if they were to touch an unclean person. Like they had, I don't remember how many hours it was, but they had to like go be cleansed from this. So he didn't want to be bothered with that, right? They're so religious, they didn't want to be bothered with
Right.
that. And then along comes the Samaritan who's strolling through town. And this is me being an entrepreneur. Like, I'm like, well, yeah, the guy's, he's on a business trip. He's strolling through town. And it says that he had compassion on this man, and he bandaged him up, put oil on his head, says that he put him on his own donkey, took him to the inn, paid for him to be at the,
Yep.
stay at the innkeeper, and then goes to the innkeeper like, hey, I gotta go on, because of course he's got to get to his business meeting, right? He's like, I gotta go on, but hey, when I come back, even if there's debt due, I will take care of that. Like, just take care of this person here. And then Jesus asks, this is Jesus telling this story. He asks, like, which one had mercy? The disciples are like, well, obviously the Samaritan. He said, yes, you've answered correctly. And then this very next statement, bro, is what unlocked me. He said, go and do likewise. And when
Mm.
I read that, it was like a lightning bolt direct from heaven, sparked the top of my head to the bottom of my feet. And I was like, oh my gosh, it is incredibly expensive to be that type of Christian. It's
Yeah.
incredibly expensive. Like, if I'm supposed to be the one that takes care of somebody, takes them to the end, pays for them, and then pays for their due, and then Jesus literally commands to go and do likewise, it was like, if I only have enough for me, if I'm only concerned, and this is what I think a lot of Christians' mindset is that, God, I'm not greedy, I just need enough for me, right? And this is how they justify their weak behavior in the marketplace or even in business. They're like, listen, I'm not greedy, just enough for me. And to me, that is the greediest thing that I've ever
It is.
freaking heard, because if you're only concerned about your needs and taking care of your whatever you got going on in your life, how in the world can you go help anybody else?
I'm
If you
standing up. I'm fired up. I got to get
come on,
standing up. I got blood. I
yeah,
got blood pumping. No, but seriously, I have said that many times to people when they're trying to understand from my own perspective. I've never said it as elegantly as you have, but the Good Samaritan, to sum it up a little bit, the Good Samaritan, which is one of the Bible's most ubiquitous examples of a Christian,
yep,
right? Like of what a person is supposed to be, right?
yep,
Was clearly a rich person,
yep,
right? You can't tell me that money is bad when money can be used to do those types of things. And I feel like if someone's watching this podcast, if someone is trying to better themselves and plug into like the kinds of things we talk about on this show and the kinds of things you're talking about, it tells me that they feel like they've been called for more. And my own personal calling, which I've, you know, started sharing a lot more lately because I feel like people want to hear it. My own personal calling on my life was to be strong for people who could not be themselves, right?
mm,
To be able to create enough margin in my life that I can help other people, right? Either through influence or whatever, right? Capital, whatever it is. I think it's the biggest cop out in the world. I'm still standing up if you're watching the audio, if you're listening to the audio and you can't see it. I'm so fired up, I'm standing. I think it's the biggest cop out in the world to say that money is evil. It's so simplistic and so, well, yep, money is evil. Therefore, that's why I'm broke. Man, look how pious I am, right?
yep,
Check my bank account if you want to know how good of a person I am. No, by the way, everyone would say that if you're controlled by money, that's a negative thing. That's probably not of the Lord. And I will tell you that no one is more controlled by money than someone who doesn't have much,
yes,
right? Because they
yes,
absolutely, it controls when they get out of bed, where they go, what they have to do, the sacrifices they have to make, whether they can take care of themselves or their loved ones. They are controlled by money. And I'd never thought about it the way you just said it, but the whole go and do likewise statement at the end of that parable is telling you, if you're reading that and you're trying to plug into it, go and build enough margin in your life. Doesn't mean you got to go build a massively successful business, although that is certainly one avenue. It means that you need to go build enough margin in your life so that when someone who needs mercy comes across your path and you feel that tug on you that you're supposed to be the one that helps them, you have the ability to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, Jared, that's so good, man. And I would even argue, like, I think you have to go build a successful business, right? Because
Yeah, well, certainly the only way I know to do it, right?
yes, but I think the reason why, and this was when I said that unlocked me. What it did is that verse gave me permission.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So to come back to like another parable in the Bible is the parable of the talents, which is another thing that really helped me gain perspective on this, because the story, it tells us that there's a master. He's going on a trip, and he's going to equip these three servants with talents, right? So talents would be like money, denarii, and so it said one got five, one got two, and the other got one. And I remember my original mindset when I read this. I thought, man, that's not fair. Like, why did one get one or one get two and the other one got five? Like, that's not fair. And how many of us actually take on that victim mindset, whether we think we're a victim or not? If you have that mindset where it's like not fair, but you got to clearly read the entire story here. It says that he gave to them according to their ability, not based upon anything else, but their ability. And then when I broke this down, I'm like, well, how does he know what their ability was? And as you read this, I really broke it down to three things. And this is what I think, that when we know that God gives to us according to our ability, it's based upon, number one, our availability. Like, which one of those servants was making themselves available to God? Like, God, use me. I want to be blessed to be a blessing. I want to be a vessel that you can just use me to do whatever's needed on this earth, right? Because at the end of the day, God doesn't need us, but the systems in place that he put in, it requires us, right? He made man to the original creator, God, okay, created man to co-create with him. And that's back to that Genesis 1:28, that kingdom culture that we're supposed to have on this earth. But the ability concept, then, are we making ourselves available? Then, if we are making ourselves available, are we making ourselves, are we responsible to actually handle what we've been given? Because if you read the story, the one who got five doubled it, the one who got two doubled it, and then the one who got one buried it, just freaking buried it. And so he wasn't, I mean, was that responsible? Maybe, but here's the third ability factor: the accountability. Clearly says the master was returning. When the master returns, he's going to ask, what did you do with what I gave you? And this is what rocks me too, Jared, that if you read this, the one who got five heard, well done, good and faithful servant. The one who got two, well done, good and faithful servant. And the one who just buried it, this is what he said. He said, I knew you to be a hard man. I knew you to be a hard man. And this is where I really believe that our concept, or our understanding of who God is in direct correlation to our understanding of money. Right. So if we're looking to God as like, oh man, he's a hard man, so I'm gonna toil, life's gonna be hard, we're just gonna bury it, we're gonna hold on to what we have and not put it to actual use. Right. And so, and the crazy thing is he just said, I buried it. He didn't even bring it back to the master, where the other two that had two and five actually said they came and brought it back to the master's. Like, see, I think of a dog, like every time they're like, look what I did, right? And the other one is like, nah, it's over there. I buried it just because I knew.
I don't think I ever caught that in the story. Yeah, he didn't even bring it back. He didn't even dig it up and go, hey man, I just made sure it didn't disappear. Right? No,
right?
It's like,
and then what did he call him? He said, you wicked and lazy servant. Like,
it was harsh.
Oh,
this is one of the most harsh rebukes you've seen in the Bible. It's a very harsh rebuke.
So harsh. But that's where I think we need to take responsibility, right? Back to I call them the three iddies of being able, right? The availability, responsibility, and accountability. And as entrepreneurs, we, especially if you live in the great country that we live in, right? No matter what's going on in the world politically, we still are extremely blessed to live here, and we have every freaking opportunity at our fingertips, right? starving kids over in Rwanda or Myanmar right now, they don't have the opportunities that we have, right? We are so freaking blessed, yet we take it for granted. And this is why, back to I'd said, I think you do need to create a successful business because we have the ability to do so. There's nothing holding you back. There's a YouTube video for everything today if you really desired that success, right? If we even want to call it that, desire more for your life. You have the ability, the tools, the resources to do so. The challenge is like, why aren't you doing it? Like, why isn't that fire in your belly to get going and put to work what you've been given to multiply and ultimately, as a kingdom entrepreneur, create that kingdom culture on this earth? So I'll get off my soapbox.
No, I mean it's so great. You know, one of the things I think entrepreneurs struggle with when they think about how faith and morality and everything sort of weaves into that is the money side of things. And it usually rears its head when you see somebody, and I'll be trying to help a business or a business that I've acquired or a business, whatever. And you start looking at what they're charging for their services or their products, and you realize that it is way, way, way off whack, way off of like what everyone else in the industry is charging. So somebody else is charging $100 for something, and you have some super honest entrepreneur who's charging 40, right, instead of 100. And what does that mean? What it means is this person thinks they're doing a wonderful thing, and to some degree they are, right? They're giving a wonderful gift by doing it so cheaply to these customers. The customers are usually excited and whatever, but here's the downstream effect of taking that too far, right? If it truly should be priced at $100, there's $60 of margin in there that can go to pay your employees more, to expand your business so you can hire more people, to create more money coming back to the people that work there so that they can do good for their loved ones and maybe even outside of their circle for other people's in their life. I worked with a guy named Scott McFarlane. He had this story when he was working in the healthcare tech industry. He was working at a Catholic hospital, and the nuns would be in the room, and they would be in the boardroom, and they'd be talking about a bunch of different things, and they were setting prices. And he said, I'll never forget hearing the head nun there start banging the table, and she would say, no margin, no mission, right? Because if she was saying, if we don't have a margin in what we do, there's no ability to go out and fulfill the mission, right? If we're just barely getting by because we feel so bad that we might actually get paid fairly for what we're doing, then there's not enough to go and grow things. And then God forbid, and it's going to happen, something bad happens to your business. You don't have enough saved up to save you, save your employees, save your business, help your community. It just is a negative thing. And so if you're out there and you are starting your business or you're running your business and you're like, man, I'm just not making enough money. And gosh, I'm doing just as good of a job as these guys over here, and they're charging 3 times what I'm charging, and I can't get anybody to get. I'm telling you, it's time to think about, boy, this is going to go viral if I say it the wrong way. It's time to think about raising your prices, right? But like, because you have to charge fair costs for what you're doing, unless your whole strategy is a Walmart strategy and you're going to try to sell 1,000 when everyone else is selling 10, and you're going to make a little bit on each one. But again, no margin, no mission, right? Give yourself margin so that you can build a business and help your people around you build a life where they can be a life and a light to others.
Yes, that's so good, Jarrod. I think it's irresponsible of you not to charge higher prices, right? Because if you, first off, it's a complete value concept or understanding. Like, if you're providing value, the problem is if you have diminished your value based upon your mindset. This is why I believe it's irresponsible, because I believe you're doing a disservice to the person that's purchasing. Right? Those who pay attention. This is why even in our coaching community, you pay a fee to be a part of it. Right? Now, it's a ministry, so all the money is actually going into the nonprofit that is being deployed to do epic things, just incredible things. But the reason for that isn't because I need money. I make enough money with my other businesses. The reason for it is I know that this is a kingdom principle, the law of sowing and reaping. That if you sow into something, you will reap, right? This is like one of the most basic kingdom principles that, back to, I think, your very, very first question of like, how do we, can business and like Christianity and our faith be together? I think
Yeah.
if you are a Christian and you are in business, you are playing with one arm behind your back if you don't operate with these principles that are in the Bible. The Bible is our instructional manual. And if we actually played this thing out where we followed these principles, we win every freaking time. It's epic. There's principles no different than this pen right now. I'm going to drop it because of a law of gravity. That's a principle. There are principles within the Bible littered all throughout Scripture, but the problem is we don't operate within the kingdom, His rule and reign back in our life. And if we did that, man, incredible things would take place. And so, I mean, I have clients where I would charge $5,000 for, and I've given the same value to somebody as I that maybe pays $500. But the
Yeah.
person that pays $5,000 always takes quicker action. They always do things like immediately because the value that they've put on it is that much more.
There's a guy that I worked with, Jason Hopper, who used to say this all the time to me: price is what you pay and value is what you get, right? And you have to really like think about the way those two things intersect. And if you're giving the same value as someone else that's charging 3 times what you're charging, you really need to ask yourself why. Right? Why is is that person, is it too much? I mean, and to be clear, there's a limit, right? So, if you're selling a commodity, like, I'm not saying that the Lord is telling you to charge $100 for every orange that you sell, right? I mean,
Right.
like, it's not going to work. But at the same time, like, if you need to hear this message, it's already resonating with you, right? I mean, you already hear it and you go, oh, I should be. This was meant for me. Because again, if you don't do that kind of thing, that's the part of, I think, culturally, we're in a weird place in America right now where it can be looked down upon to be a successful person or a business person, or certainly, like, if you run a successful business that makes money, everyone just assumes that, boy, how many people did you knife to get to where you are? And I think people that look at it that way don't understand that when you look at businesses that can weather global pandemics or global recessions or downturns in their industry or bad luck or whatever, the loss of a massive client, the businesses that can survive those moments and not have to lay off everybody and destroy a bunch of people's careers and everything else are the ones that have been able to reap and sow and put some away so that they can take care of themselves in a bad situation, right? And you just can't do that unless you come into things with the mindset that you're going to get paid fairly for what you do.
Yes.
And that's the moment, that part, when I asked that question at the beginning of the episode, where my mind was that that's the part where it breaks down for everyone who's trying to live in the business world and also be a person of faith, right? Is It's right when they're like, how do I charge money for this? Right. And when I was at the Badass Business Summit a couple of months ago, and it was a question I got 3 or 4 times from people that were right at the very beginning, is just how they were timid about asking someone to pay for the value that they're bringing. Right.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking, if you can't figure that out, this is never going to work, right? I mean, it's just, and you're certain that, like, it's not even is it going to be massively successful. You might not even be able to keep the lights on. And so, price is what you pay, value is what you get, right? Focus on the value, and the price should be the price people are willing to pay and be happy with what they got and not feel like they got taken. And so that's
Yes.
that's the formula, right? You have the value there. The price should be what people are willing to pay and not feel like they got cheated.
Yes. Yes. And understanding those situations, I think you gave that example of like an orange. I love this concept, or even just this discussion, man, because uh, while an orange may be a commodity here, we understand if I was on a desert island, and if you and I were on a desert island, man, and you had an orange and I had
Yeah.
stacks of cash, I'm happy to pay $100 for that bad boy.
Supply and demand. Exactly.
Right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So understanding that, and man, we could talk about this for hours. The value and then perceived value of what people think they're getting, right, versus what they're actually getting. But yeah, the concept of value, I think, is so incredible in the business world. But most Christians devalue themselves solely based upon their mindset and what they think they're what I think that the enemy has deceived them into thinking actually is being a good steward, a good Christian. It's not the cheapest. It's not the lowest woe is me mentality. No, if because here's the reason I say that, man. If you believe the word of God, if you are a follower of Jesus, you don't get to cherry pick and truncate scriptures and pull out this one to serve you. This is what happens though. Most Christians, a lot of churches even do this, right? Where they're like, they'll pull out a scripture to meet their message for that week. That ain't how it works. Because when I read the Bible, I read that my God owns a cattle on 1,000 hills. He is not a God of lack. He is a God of abundance, and prosperity is riddled throughout the entire Bible. There's a lot of talk about it, right? So it's not that I'm a prosperity gospel teacher, but I am a gospel teacher, right? I'm certainly ain't a poverty gospel teacher, because everybody that I looked through the Bible that was broken, I mean, that wasn't good, right? It's like there's many signs of blessing throughout the Old Testament of actually what wealth and actually what that did for you and your generations to come, right? The genealogy there. And so back to just Jesus coming on the scene and preaching the kingdom. It's like, well, we have to get back to these kingdom concepts and these principles and understanding that our resources may change here on this earth, but our source, if you've committed your life to Christ, our source will never change. And if we keep coming back to him in that, this is why I have multiple businesses, man. It's resources are going to change over and over again, but I'm committed to my source ultimately.
I just feel like it's an easy thing for people to think that, when you get into business, that Christianity requires you to be, we focus too much on the meek shall inherit the earth, and that we think that permeates like every activity that you should ever do. And I think that I don't think the Bible requires you to be a wimp, right? And if you do think that, I think you should probably go read about King David,
Yeah.
right? And who's definitely not a wimp.
Right.
And I think you should read about, any number of people that fought down demons and battles and enemies and did it in the name of what was good and what was righteous. And, then go set your business plan and your pricing, right? And see how you feel about that. But I think, this whole concept of like, you can't be a smart, sharp, business person who's making savvy moves and things like that and also be a follower of Christ is just faulty. I mean, I feel like, I remember that phrase. I can't remember who said it the first time, but it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Yeah.
Right. And it's better to have the power to do more and to do bad things and choose to do good, right? Choose to control that beast than it is to be in an all-out war and you've never taught yourself the skills to survive or to help the side of good win,
Yes. Dude, and that comes back to even the ability again. Are you taking responsibility for the talents that you even have? It doesn't even have to be talent as in money, right? But the talent as in what's the God-given gifting and ability that you've been given, and put that to use. Like we're responsible for that. So yeah, this is great. And you said meek, and I'm pretty versed on this, hence it is my last name. The meek shall inherit the earth. That's
the Rylee Meek will inherit
sure.
the earth.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was referring to me. But that being meek, even just your reference there of the gardener and the warrior, it's like being meek isn't that you're passive and you're willing to let things happen or let it go. It's like, no, it's power under control. It is you can be a freaking warrior at any given point, but hopefully you don't have to pull the sword out of the sheath, right? But if you have to, you're more than capable of doing so, right? That's what I think that most Christians need to be more assertive. more taking boldness, have actually standing up for their values and their beliefs. And because when they don't, I think we get a heck of a lot more of what we see right now in the world, just culture, trampling over Christians and their beliefs. Uh,
Yeah.
and yeah, we just need more bold, righteous people that are on fire for Jesus, but also for standing up for what's right.
Yeah, I totally agree. Let's get a check on our chicken over here. We need to make
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
I've got my temperature probe is saying we're about at 101. Look at that, baby. Come on, we're getting a
Ooh,
little bit of that golden action there on the top. Let's just hit it with a little more. I'm running out of stuff. If these guys were a sponsor, maybe I'd have more.
right?
Right? Gosh, when you get the chicken skin, when you go slow and you get it crispy and brown, come on.
It's
That's
looking
when we know
good,
the
man.
Lord is smiling. The Lord is smiling
Yes.
on us in that. So speaking of slow smoked chicken, let's talk about patience for a second, because
Ooh,
I think speaking for my stepping in the confessional right now, right? Okay, if there's a weakness that I have in business, it's patience.
yep.
And I've especially if you have done something well or you've had some success and then you're turning around and you're trying to do something else, it's so easy to get amnesia that the first time you probably had success, it was a slog to get where you are. And truthfully, if success happens really, really quickly, it's usually very fleeting,
Yep.
and it can probably disappear as quickly as it came. And so I think if you truly believe in the mission that you're on, you believe that you've been called to do the things that you do, if you've been called to entrepreneurship or whatever it is, um, I think you're also being called to patience. And that is something you are going to have to repeat to yourself all the time as you look in the mirror and you go, you're splashing water in your face going, why is this not working yet? Like I can't tell you how many times I've done that in my career where I'm looking around going, these guys, they're not, are they that much smarter than me that they've got this go? You know what I mean? Like why is this not working? And it just, um, I saw a picture the other day of the process of entrepreneurship. And there's like, when you start, there's like the initial sort of elation, and we're gonna do it, we're gonna conquer the world, it's unbelievable, and then you fall into the trough of disillusionment, right?
Yep.
And it's inevitable. It doesn't matter how many times you've started a business, you go on that path. And then there's lots of different, I've seen different versions of that picture where there's lots of different things that happen out of that. You're trying things and there's some eureka moments and whatever, and then eventually you either give up down at the bottom of the trough, or you keep plugging along and you start to figure things out. But that trough um, requires patience. And
Mhm.
if there's anything that faith can teach us in the business world, it is how to rely on your faith to be patient and wait for do the good work that you know that you're supposed to be doing. Also, being humble enough to figure out what you're doing wrong and improve and everything else. But I wonder if you have some thoughts on people. I need this for myself. How do you teach people to be more patient as they build a business?
Yeah, great question, man. Because patience is not my thing. And I think most entrepreneurs, right? Most entrepreneurs, the reason we dive into entrepreneurship typically is because we love the thrill of the hunt, right? It's like,
Yeah,
yes, we're going to battle today. The battle of business is just so epic, and it's addicting, and so many of us, I think, even get shiny object syndrome, where it's like, "Ooh, I can do this now," and then
yeah, yeah.
yeah, maybe we're feeling that a little bit of tension there. And it's like, this is harder than I thought. Let me go do this now, and we're not sticking to the reason why we started, right? And this is how within the King's Council we have a framework that we coach on, and it's pretty basic, but it comes back to a biblical framework that works every single time. It literally this works every single time if you work it right, and it's seven basic stages that people go through, and I'll run through it real quick if that's good, Jared.
Yeah,
But
please.
it's I'd like to give a little understanding of this. If you just go and read Genesis chapter 1, just read Genesis chapter 1, that's the framework. And I've actually written a book on this called The 7-Day Blueprint. The original creator, right? As an entrepreneur, I want to follow who I believe the original entrepreneur was. And my definition of entrepreneurship simply means the original French word of it, entreprendre, simply meant to
Ooh,
undertake.
say
Yeah.
that again.
Pardon my
Say it again.
French, Jarrod. It's
Pardon
a
your French.
entreprendre.
Oh,
Entreprendre. It just means to undertake. So whether you're I think you could be a stay-at-home mom, entrepreneur, right? You could be a grill master, entrepreneur. You could be whatever. If you're willing to undertake that task at hand, and being God, being the original creator, he undertook the task of creating us, right? And Genesis chapter 1 gives us his framework. And so why wouldn't I follow the master at this thing?
mm,
And we break it down each day. First off, we serve a God of structure and order. He is detailed, and he planned every single one of these days out. And from the beginning of time, the first thing that he did, first off, he spoke everything into existence. This is what Genesis tells us. He spoke everything into existence, and our words as believers, whether you're a believer or not, I guess, your words are powerful, right? You don't have to believe this crap, but it actually works if you actually abide by these things. So what are we speaking? Are we speaking life into our business, right? But the first thing that it says is God said, let there be light. And what do you think of, Jarrod, actually, when I say light? Like, let there be light. What's the first thing that pops into your head?
I mean, the first thing well, it depends. It depends on where my head's at. I could say the sun, but I could also, when I hear light, I think of vision. I think of being able to see things, right?
Ooh, it's good, man. Yeah, because originally I thought sun. I'm like, okay, yeah, the sun. But
Yeah.
as I continued to read, the sun and the moon weren't created until day 4. And then also in scripture, I read it tells us that God is light. So then it's like, well, what the heck is that? How does that work? If God said, let there be light, but you hit it dead on, man, it was vision. The very first thing that God cast was his vision. He said, let there be light. And his vision, his energy was cast. And actually, science actually proves this today that the universe as we know it is still expanding at the speed of light.
Light.
Crazy, man. Crazy. But when we come into this thing of vision, God had a very specific vision of what he was creating. He was creating us to co-create with him. We jacked it up though. And being Alpha and Omega, if he's God, he knows everything that happened and everything that will forever happen, right? Like that's what scripture tells us. He's all knowing, he's omniscient, right? So why the heck would he do that? And this is where I really believe this is the reason why is his vision was so strong it gave any sort of pain purpose in his life. And as business owners and as entrepreneurs, if our vision is not clear and it is not so strong, rooted in this is why I got started, this is why I'm going to push through, even when things suck, even when the phone's not ringing, when the email's not picking up, our ads aren't hitting, we have a vision that we are going to adhere to, right? And once we're crystal clear on that, then it says that on day 2, okay, God, it says he separated the heavens from the earth. He created what we know as our atmosphere, right? In a business world, I consider this the culture. Like, what is the culture that you've now created based upon the vision that you have? Are your employees excited? Are they coming to work because they love the culture that they are part of? Or are they like, I'm not really about this thing, right? Because you got to do some work there. Then, if we've got the culture, day 3, it says that God actually peeled back the waters. He created dry land and vegetation. This is fascinating to me because he had to actually create this. Everything that we know was created in a specific order. He had to create what we know as oxygen, carbon dioxide being converted into oxygen, photosynthesis. All of this had to be created, and this is in the business world what I would consider structure. This is the playbook for your business. Do you have an actual playbook? Does everybody know the plays that they're supposed to be running? Does marketing, sales, is there a playbook? Not a business plan. Okay, business plans are worthless unless you're trying to raise capital, in my opinion. It's the daily playbook, your SOPs. What are we actually doing here to fulfill, to keep the company culture, but to fulfill the ultimate vision. Day 4, then it says God actually placed the stars in the sky, the sun, the moon, everything. This is really when he created what we know as time, right? This 24-hour period, or what I would consider order in our business. It's the implementation of the structure, right? Are things being measured? Are they being tracked? Are they being recorded? Okay, and then day 5. I'm trying to go through this quick, Jarrod. Day
No,
5.
this is great. I'm loving it. Keep going, keep going.
Day 5, it says he actually created the birds of the air and the fish of the sea, which is crazy because he hasn't even created us yet. We're not even, there's no other even animals, but he first creates the birds of the air and the fish of the sea. And I'm like, why in the world would he do that? Well, it's pretty interesting that the birds ate the fish, right? And then the birds would defecate, not to be disgusting as we're grilling chicken here, but the birds would defecate into the water to create algae and coral, right? Also on dry land, which fertilized the vegetation. Okay, so this is what I would consider momentum. In the business world, you have different divisions depending upon the size of your business. HR, are they working with the sales team, the recruiting team? Is marketing and sales communicating? Is there momentum that's taking place here? Because if one vertical is hurting, right? Let's say in our business, Jarrod, let's say sales are down. Who in the company is hurting?
Well, everybody's hurting a sales account, right?
Exactly. If
Yeah,
marketing
for
isn't
sure.
bringing in leads, everybody's hurting. If HR
Yeah,
is not on top of their game, it hurts the culture. Everybody's hurting, right? So this
yeah.
has to be the momentum that we're incorporating into our business. And then day 6, excuse me, he said he created more animals, and then he created us. And ultimately, we've been given that mandate that I said earlier to be fruitful, to multiply. This is multiply. So if I have the systems in place and there's momentum in our business, now I can actually scale this thing. If I don't have those systems in place, there's zero chance that I'm going to successfully scale anything, right? Scale it right to the ground. But then day 7 is rest, which comes back to I think a little
Yeah.
bit of patience of how we got on this topic. It's what's interesting too. The Bible clearly says that God, I mean, clearly God he didn't get tired. It's not like he was like, oh man, that's a tough 6 days. I need a break. He's freaking God, right? It says that he created the Sabbath for man. He didn't create it for himself. He created it
Right.
for us. Now, there's an honor and an expectation that we honor him on that day, right? But it's for us to actually rest. And how many of us entrepreneurs are like, yeah, I'll rest when I'm dead? That was my philosophy until I read this, and I'm like, okay, there's actually this works. I need rest. I need to take a day to just not be creating in my business. And if I follow this blueprint, this template, it freaking works every time. And here's the
Yeah.
cool thing: if you're already in business, Jarrod, if people listen to this are in business, they can lay this blueprint up almost like an X-ray and just do a screenshot of like, okay, where are we at? Where are we struggling in our business? Because it's clear. It's so clear when we understand that. It's so easy just to go back to the previous day. And what I mean by that is if sales are down, right? We're not creating momentum. I got to go back into order, right? I got to figure out, are our people doing what they're supposed to be doing, when they're supposed to be doing it, how they're supposed to be doing it. If they're not, then I just got to go back to structure. Do they even know what they're supposed to be doing? Do we have an expectation, a playbook in place? If not, then I go back to culture, because we gotta have a team meeting here, and we gotta understand like, hey, are we all on the same page here? And if they're not, then I go back to vision. And if the
Right.
vision is clear, we can create the culture, the structure, the order, the ultimately the momentum to multiply our business, not forgetting to take that period of rest. That man is a blueprint for success that works every single time.
That's so good. And you jumped off of a question about patience. And what struck me in that as you were laying that out was that day 7, you said, it's a day of rest after all of that, but God didn't need the rest, right? It's almost
Mhm.
like, he built all this stuff, and you're talking about how all these things work together. And it's like day 7 was the day that he waited. right? And day 7 is sort of like, that's the day where he taught you patience. Now you've done all these things, and now you have to, now is the ingredient is time, right?
Yes.
And you're waiting for these things to all build. For him, it was building the earth, right, to where it was. For us, it is, for one of my businesses, is waiting for people to call for us to coat their concrete, right, or to
Yep.
fix their hot rod. Those are some of my businesses, right? But it's patience is a part of what you do, and you have to build your business and know that it's going to take time to get there. But I love what you just laid out. Is that 7-day thing? Is that available somewhere for people to plug into if they love that?
Yeah. Yeah. So I wrote a book called the Kingdom Entrepreneur, the 7-day blueprint that lays it out entirely.
Well, there you go.
But also, I believe, let me just confirm. I think it's the 7dayblueprint.com.
I
Uh,
love that a guy is so busy and has so much going on. He's got to Google his own stuff to see where it. It's
Make
like
sure it's
that. I feel very seen right now.
it's
Like, that's okay. Yes, I feel very connected to you.
that's great, man. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the 7dayblueprint.com.
I imagine you could Google it. Rylee, Meek, and 7-Day Blueprint. I'm going to give one last little check to the chicken. The challenge of this show sometimes is you can't always pick something that's going to get done in the course of the show, but we are just about there,
Oh,
baby.
it's looking
Come
good.
on. This is looking good. We got some. Look at, oh my God, it's getting juicy there. All right. So we're not quite to the FDA's recommended temp yet, and we're going to get there. We have faith, but we also don't be stupid and eat raw chicken.
Patience, Jared.
Patience is right. So Rylee, I could talk to you about this all day, and definitely feel like you're a kindred spirit. Thank you so much for sharing all this with us. If somebody wanted to connect with you, the name of the book was
The Kingdom Entrepreneur.
The
The
Kingdom
se- the
Entrepreneur. And if they wanted to connect with you and your movement, how would they find you?
joinkingscouncil.com. And yeah, I think we lay out all the different programs and things that we have on there. And that 7-day blueprint, we have tons of free resources and things like that for people. We've got an app, a community, a faith-based community of kingdom entrepreneurs. That's what we're about, and we're here to, provide help, resources. But it's really just about community. It's just fun to be on mission with like-minded people. And I say mindsetted because it isn't about just being like-minded. It's easy to be around people that are like-minded, but when we're mindsetted, which is mean I'm focused on your success and you're focused on my success, and we're going to run this race together. That's what that community is really about.
I love it. Well, this was a real treat, Rylee. You're a treat as well, and thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with our listeners, guys. If you found some value in this show, and I know you did, please go look up Rylee and the King's Council and connect with them. Follow them on social media, and also if you will send this episode to someone who you think could get some value from it, that would be fantastic. I know there was a lot of value in it. If you're a faith-based entrepreneur and you're trying to figure out how to build your business in a way that makes you fit into the plan that God has for you. So please give us a 5-star rating everywhere you see us. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on TikTok. I think we're on Napster still. I don't know, who knows, right? But we're everywhere. Follow us, like us, and we will see you next time on Slow Smoke Business.